All right, Pickle. Let's get to some headlines from across the state of Texas. We're going to start with some action on the field. We'll start with some spring football. There was spring football this weekend.
There was.
Actually, Sunday afternoon football.
Time has no meaning.
As Tarleton playing in their second Division I game, this time climbing the ladder and playing a legit FBS program in New Mexico State. They go on the road. And look, I think that we have kind of come into this situation with relative I think we've had measured expectations for them because, look, I think that there's a pretty big, learning curve. There's a pretty big gap between Division II, where they played, and Division I, where they're playing now. There's a pretty big gap. I think that we talked about last week how they showed well in their overtime loss to McNeese. Well, this time they go on the road and play an FBS program. Mm-hmm. New Mexico State's the only FBS program playing in the spring. New Mexico State, they go on the road to El Paso. They met in El Paso, played at the Sun Bowl. And darn if Tarleton State didn't just put the wood to New Mexico State. 43-17, their first Division I victory over an FBS program, let alone. I know New Mexico State they're kind of in that weird in-between of they're among the worst FBS programs in the nation. But still, and when you add in the fact that, by the way, this was a team that was This was a team that was wounded coming into this. They were without 5 offensive starters because of COVID-19 protocols. Tarleton was. They were without 5 offensive starters. They were without one of their defensive starters in the first half because of a targeting penalty the week before. And yet, they go in there and they mollywop them. Cam Burston had to step up and play he was named the starter just moments before kickoff. Like hours before kickoff, he was named the starter at quarterback and played really well. But he played well. Gabe Douglas, Jeremy Phelps, and Blake Haynes all had to step up in the stead of guys who were out for COVID-19 protocols. And the offense was absolutely electric. The offense was unbelievable. Tarleton rings up a grand total of more than 500 yards total offense, 501 yards of total offense, including 249 on the ground. And look, they shut down New Mexico State. And by the way, this is one of those games. It was 43-17. This game was 33-7 at half. Okay, this game, in a lot of ways, not as close as it seems. Fantastic win for Tarleton State. So they get their first ever win as a Division I program. Also, while they were playing, there were other teams that weren't. There were other teams that weren't. And unfortunately, we've had to dial up the small college schedule tracker again. You can find it at TexasFootball.com. But if it's not one thing, it's another.
Yep.
The winter weather wreaked some havoc. Lamar had to postpone their season opener. They were supposed to open the season against Northwestern State. It had to get pushed all the way to March 27th, so they will not begin the Blaine Morgan era until this weekend against Nichols.
So February 27th.
February 27th. No. Well, yes, but the game against Northwestern State is going to be rescheduled for March 27th.
Okay, sorry.
I didn't clarify that very well. The American Southwest Conference has had to shuffle a ton of things around because of multiple cancellations. Any games were postponed last week, which included Hardin-Simmons and Southwestern, Texas Lutheran and McMurray, Southwestern and Louisiana College. They're going to be made up on March 13th. The ASC Championship is going to be pushed 2 weeks to March 27th. A lot of things are moving around. The SAA, the Southern Athletic Association, that's where Austin College, Millsaps, Trinity, and Hendricks, they pushed their games a couple of weeks. UT Permian Basin had to push their game against Southern Nazarene to another date.
What a nightmare!
It's just a nightmare. If it's not one thing, it's another.
Lord, those poor guys.
It's just proof that this is still in spirit the 2020 season.
Yeah.
just because it's playing.
And here we are saying, and the game was rescheduled to March 27th of 2021.
It's ridiculous. So you can find the schedule tracker at TexasFootball.com. We're keeping an eye on all things college football in the state of Texas here in the spring.
Quick programming note: we are live on YouTube right now.
Hi YouTube.
We're on there.
Hello YouTube. Okay. some coaching news. We got some late breaking coaching news coming down right now. The one that we have in the Chiron there is Jim Ledford. Jim Ledford is retiring at Richardson Berkner. That is notable in the sense that Berkner is going to be an interesting job, I think, for somebody to step up and grab if they are so inclined. Furthermore, Jim Ledford has been at Richardson Berkner since 2000. So we're talking 20 seasons there, or 20 years there at Berkner. He is retiring there, so congratulations to Coach Ledford. He, of course, had a run there in the mid-2000s where they were really, really good. A 12-1 season in 2005 is probably the high watermark for them. But Jim Ledford is retiring there at Berkner. From what that was broken by Matt Stepp, our Dave Campbell's Texas high school football insider. From what he understands, Coach Ledford has not entirely closed the door on coming back, but it would have to be the right situation. But for now, Coach Ledford is retiring at Richardson Berkner, so Richardson Berkner is open. Also, this was late breaking, coming down basically as soon as we were, just right as we were coming onto the air, and this was broken by Cale Steed out there at Press Pass Sports. He's out there in the Panhandle. That Seminole has hired Greg Pointer to be their new head coach. Greg Pointer has been at Pampa the last 7 years, so he is moving from Pampa to Seminole, and so that is a move there. Pampa is now open, and so that will be something that, leaving. He's been there for a while. They've had some really nice years there at Pampa, but he will be taking his talents to Seminole.
There we go.
So Seminole has a new head coach in Greg Pointer. That is some late breaking news. Of course, we've got all the coaching changes at TexasFootball.com.
Brought to you by
our friends, the North Texas
Honda.
The North Texas Honda dealers. They're here to help. I should probably get better at that read.
I got you. That's what I'm here for.
That's why they pay you the big bucks. All right. On to the recruiting side, there were a couple of noteworthy things. We're going to talk all things recruiting on Wednesday, as we normally do, with Greg Powers, an excellent athlete, and a big-time guest, which I won't spoil. But
oh, man.
we will there are two things I wanted to note. One of them was a relatively big commitment that came down over the weekend as Evan Stewart, the wide receiver from Frisco Liberty, has announced his commitment to the University of Texas. Texas beats out places like Alabama, Auburn, Baylor. He had 35 offers. He is a four-star prospect, a real burner out there is Evan Stewart. He is heading to Texas. He has pulled the trigger there. So a big get there for Jeff Banks and Steve Sarkisian and that crew as they were able to haul in Evan Stewart, a commitment from him. Elsewhere, there's another one. This came down yesterday because I think I got tagged in it. But J.D. Price, Jadarian Price, one of the most highly sought running backs in this class, has committed. He is heading to Notre Dame. He pretty much had his pick of the litter. I think he's a 4-star on TexasFootball.com.
Yes.
He's short list of one of the best running back prospects in the state of Texas. He is heading to Notre Dame as the Golden Domers haul in J.D. Price. Notre Dame doesn't recruit a ton here in the state of Texas. They pick their spots, but this is a pretty big get there for Notre Dame to haul in J.D. Price.
I was pretty surprised by that selection.
A little surprised. A little surprising. I'm going to make sure I ask Greg Powers about this on Wednesday.
I feel like there's some tie-in that we just don't know about from looking at, the grand scope of things. But I feel like that's one of those, there's got to be some underlying reason there.
Very interesting, though. But J.D. Price, Jadarian Price, the running back from Denison, is heading to Notre Dame. I want to also direct you to TexasFootball.com. Got a bunch of good stuff up on TexasFootball.com. My piece that I talked about on Friday is up. The most improved high school football offenses in 2020. We've got our top 10 prospects of the in the class of 2022 up. We're continuing to roll out part of our unfiltered anonymous recruit survey, including the challenges of being recruited during the COVID-19 pandemic. Shahan J. Raja is doing his state of the program pieces up. He's got one up on Houston. In which he says that, and I don't know if he's necessarily wrong about it. He said the worst thing about Houston in their 2020 was that they were irrelevant. which is kind of true. I mean, they were just kind of faded from the national picture. How can they get back on there? Shahan J. Raja, our college football insider, has that up on TexasFootball.com, and a few more things, including Matt Stepp just finished up his countdown of the top 10 Texas high school football games he watched in 2020. You will not believe what number one is. So, TexasFootball.com for all things football in the state of Texas.
And one other thing that Stepp just said to keep up with those helpful Honda coaching changes, he said that there are several hires being made tonight and later this week, a couple of which Hurst Bell, Sims Bowie, and Heiko on the list of names coming out soon. So make sure to keep up with that on TexasFootball.com too.
There are going to be a lot of moves. Tonight is Monday. Today is Monday, and Monday tends to be school board night.
Yep.
So if you're wondering what our job is actually about, it is just being like reading the minutes of school board meetings. But yeah, so it's school board night, and so as a result, there are probably going to be a number of hires. So make sure you make TexasFootball.com your source.
And those school board meetings are probably going to be long tonight, considering everything that happened last week.
They're probably going to be long.
So R.I.P. to Stepp.
Long. They probably didn't happen last week.
Right? Exactly.
So they've got 2 weeks worth of stuff. So shout out to Stepp. I'm glad you are watching those and not me.